Welcome to the Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast, where we explore the future and what this means for your leadership. We ask the big questions. What's happening on the horizon? What does this mean for us? And most importantly, what skills do I need now for leadership of the future? It's time to explore. Let's go.
Well, hello, it's Zoe, and this is a solo-sode. Woohoo! And I've got a couple of big insights for you coming from my personal reflection that you can use for your own personal reflection, whether it's your birthday, like it was mine, or whether you need a mid-year down tools and reflect, which I think all of us do. So it just so happens my birthday is on the 1st of July, which in Australia is the first day of the new financial year. That's how my husband remembers it. And in Canada, it's Canada Day, which is way more exciting. So happy Canada Day to all my Canadian listeners, and happy 4th of July to all of my American listeners, and happy new financial year to all of my Australian listeners. In the meantime, on Planet Human, two really interesting things for you to chew on. There is a new AI, of course, app or platform, I should say, called Luminaries. And this is interesting. So what Luminaries is, they've taken the works of famous luminaries, in quotation marks, like Tony Robbins, Adam Grant, Brene Brown, etc. And you can now go on and have a blogging conversation with those particular personas. So I went on to have a quick chat with Adam Grant's luminary persona, and I was underwhelmed, to be honest. It took forever for them to process my question, and I immediately got bored and left the site. So I think this has a couple of things for us to keep in mind. First of all, copyright concern. I'm pretty sure that platform did not consult, ask, or get permission to use their IP or to use their picture or to represent them in any way. So, interesting, that one. What does that mean? How can if we have stuff on the web, like many of us do, like I have a heap of stuff on the web, how can people use that in their own particular business venture? Now, in some ways, this has been happening for yonks. If you publish a book, there's nothing stopping anyone to take that book and teach the content to others. Whether it's specifically quoting it or taking the content and developing a training course around it. That happens all the time. And what can we do about it as authors? Absolutely zilch. We can say cease and desist, but it may or may not help. It kind of highlights the big overarching concern about copyright, who owns what does the web mean, how can even our personas, our personalities, our image, and even our voice be protected? Should it be protected? How do we manage all of that? These are big questions that are as yet unresolved. And I think it has business considerations as well when you look at your own company's or organization's persona online. What is stopping your competitor to take all of the IP that you put out in blogs, podcasts, etc., and using it for their own purposes? Well, nothing. So I do not have the answer. I just think it asks us to ask questions about it. What does this mean for identity? What does this mean for content? What does this mean for platforms? And probably the bigger question down the line, which my colleague seeded in my mind when I saw him speak, was asking, how do we prove that we're human? Like that we're the human author of whatever text or document or product. And I think this is going to be a bigger concern. So proof of humanness, I think, will be what's coming down the line when it comes to identity. The other piece I wanted to share with you from Planet Human, and this isn't that new. It was just brought to my attention recently in a webinar with Stephen Kotler of The Art of Impossible fame. And he's teaching a class that I'm in at the moment around artificial intelligence in the business world. And he shared a story about an artificial intelligent psychologist named Ellie. And Ellie's been going for a while. And when he had a session with Ellie, she's an online digital avatar, she can process at that time about 15 cues, things like voice, inflection, facial cues. And he said it was unnerving. It is just like talking to a real person, except that it's an AI avatar. And apparently Veteran Affairs in the US are going to be implementing or deploying Ellie as a psychologist that vets can speak with. So what can we make of this? This is the future unfolding. So AI Luminaries is kind of a rudimentary version of something like Ellie, who's being a lot more sophisticated in terms of how she is responding. So she has a visual representation and she's got her own facial cues, etc., as opposed to the online chat that AI Luminaries is using, which is basically putting a sleeve over ChatGPT and replying via text in the apparent voice of Adam Grant, written voice of Adam Grant, Tony Robbins, etc. So yeah, these digital avatars that'll become our service professionals, I think, is definitely going to be on the rise. And to be honest, isn't that great? What if we could have our own personal AI that we could chat to and help work problems through? And the privacy aspect of that, in terms of not needing to confess to another live human, is probably pretty good. And the dehumanizing aspect of that, not having another flesh and blood person around, is also a highlight. Highlight? Low light. Is a challenge. And I did a recent thing with some of my clients and former clients where I've been pretty quiet in work this month. And I said, how can I be of service to you? How can I be helpful? How about we have a chat? We can go for a walk. We can have a coffee. We can have a Zoom call. We can chat about anything you like. You can use it as a coaching call, a strategy session, or just a whinge, or just a catch up. I don't mind. And the response was amazing. And just the ability to connect one-on-one, I think, is never going to go away. The ability to connect authentically with other humans is always going to be an important aspect of our humanity and our mental and emotional well-being. In the meantime, why not get AI support? So that's it for Planet Human. On Planet Zoe, yes, my running is going well. I've added an extra day of running into the mix of my workouts, and the body is pretty much keeping up with that. A little bit stretched maybe, but it feels so good. It feels so good to be out and moving in the fresh air, in the dark, in the morning. That's part 1 of Planet Zoe. Part 2 is Olympus Bound. I'm nearing the last 10 chapters or so of the first rough draft of the sequel, and I'm super excited about that. I'm still waiting for the proofread to come back from the editor around Terra Blanca, the prequel. That's dragging its heels, and I'm finding that a little frustrating. But anyway, I'm pumping out really fun stories, which is really fun. Now, on to the main content for today's solo-sode. Our theme for this quarter is lead change and reflecting specifically on virtues, character, and ethics. So on my birthday reflection, I'm 53. How is my character? And when I looked up what are some good questions to ask around this, I was bored to tears with some of the questions. What are your values? What are the gap between your values and your action? I'm like, ugh, barf. I didn't want to do that. So I had a different approach, and feel free to use all of these tips in your own reflection. First of all, I went high level. What are some highlights from the last 12 months? Well, I published my first novel. That was definitely a massive undertaking and a big learning curve. I took a whole bunch of trips in Australia and overseas, which was great after the confinement of COVID. And I managed to get my fitness back on track after a couple of back injuries and illnesses, etc. That's been a massive highlight. Always it comes back to health for me. That's a core keystone aspect of having a happy life, is feeling good about yourself and being able to move and breathe and to be well. So it takes up a lot of investment of my time and energy, and it is worth it. So looking at a different way of reflecting, I wanted to look at learn, know, and love. What have I learned? What do I know? What do I love? And a fourth one, identity. And then there's the fast 5 for myself, which I changed a little bit. So here we go. What did I learn this year? Technically, I learned how to write and publish and launch a novel on my own platform. I won't bore you with the intricate details of that because it feels like mastering in small things, but it was a major thing. That was pretty good. Another thing I learned is how difficult it is to shift positioning as a professional and have people go along with you. So my positioning for the last couple of years has been an expert in people stuff. And I wanted to upgrade that, extend that. And I moved into positioning myself as a leadership futurist, somebody who looks at the future and asks the question, what do we need now in order to lead what's coming next? Really interested in how leadership will change and evolve over time. And this has been a lagging experience for the people coming along for the ride. Largely people have embraced it and are interested in that. That it seems to be a bigger picture challenge for most people. And this is the other thing I've learned. The tactical overrides the strategic in leadership priorities too often. So, for example, when I bump my knee, dealing with that pain seems a lot easier than dealing with the pain of chronic health issues from lifestyle choices, right? One is easier to address. It's a technical challenge, if you like, and the other one is an adaptive challenge, one that deals with the system. So it's much easier to deal with components, urgent and important priorities, versus the system, the long-term strategic questions that we need to address. And we can't do that. We can't just be focused on the present with ignoring the future. And it's my mission to help leaders contend with both the now and the next. And to that end, by the way, at the end of this month in July, I have an online webinar and a Canberra in-person webinar version, Canberra in-person event, both on the topic of strategic conversations. So I would love for you to be there and to carve out some time and space to actually ask the challenging, robust questions that are not easy to resolve, because the sooner you ask them, the more some solutions may present themselves. So what do I know? Well, I know that I'm good at some stuff. I'm good at writing. I'm good at connecting. I'm good at seeing patterns in people's behaviors and team behaviors. I'm good at recalling a lot of information and frameworks that I've read and absorbed and taught over the years, and pulling out of my leadership toolkit the right model and the right framework for the person at the time. I also know that I'm a people person. I love people. I am endlessly fascinated by people. And at the same time, sometimes I just want to hide in a hole and not see anybody. And I get nervous and shy about reaching out to people. Yeah, I'm sure some of you are the same. What do I love? Well, I love reading. I love writing. I love creating. I love getting outdoors. And I love being useful. This idea of being useful is something that I'll tease out in just a moment with the Fast Five. So what is my identity? And again, I'm going to talk about identity a little bit more in just a moment too. Currently, my identity that I'm working and playing with is as an author, both of nonfiction and sci-fi, science fiction novels. I'm also an advisor and facilitator to CEOs and their teams. And I'm playing lightly with these identities and not getting too anchored in them. Basically, I love big picture thinking. I'm good at it. I'm good at helping amazing leaders get clear on their own path forward. And that really jazzes me up. And so, yeah, it's all good to do this reflection, go, yeah, that's me. That's what I'm about. So the Fast Five I developed for myself, I asked ChatGPT, what are some non-obvious questions to ask about yourself when you're doing a personal reflection for the year? So I cherry-picked some of the suggestions. And here they are. If I were a book, what would my title be? And I came up with Hearth and Horizons. So that means blending the richness of adventure with the comfort of returning home. Hearth and Horizons. Of course, it's a polarity, right? Fast five question number 2. If you could have a conversation with your future self, what would you ask? Basically, I would ask a couple things came straight to mind, because probably it's what's front of mind for me right now. How can I let me try that again. How can I make my books into movies? I have this little fantasy of sitting in the premiere of a big picture movie in the audience, and the titles come up and it's like based on the work by Zoe Routh, and that just gives me a little thrill. So I'd love to see that come to fruition. The next question I'd ask my future self is, how can I become a best-selling author? What do I need to do now in order to improve my writing, reach more readers, and create a story that's worth telling? And the third one is, how can I be more useful? And this is definitely from this question came out of watching Arnold Schwarzenegger's biographical series on Netflix. And what an amazing story, rising out of nothing in Austria to become Mr. Olympia, tremendous bodybuilder, and the commitment and dedication to that over years to produce an incredible muscular body. Yeah, it's just outstanding. First career. Second career was as a movie actor, and not just being an actor, but being a star and rising through Hollywood over a number of years. And then the third career as a governor in California. Amazing. And he tells a story of how one of the lessons he learned from his father was just be useful. And it stayed with him. And at the end of the series, he recounts what's he doing now? He's 75. He's had these 3 careers. He's back doing movies. He's head of action at Netflix or something. And he says, time to get back to work. Time to be useful. I love it. And I think that's a really guiding force for me. When I'm not doing work with people, I'm like, how am I being useful? And sometimes when you're writing, it's a long time between creating something and delivering it into hands or in front of eyeballs of people. So it's a long time to wait in order to feel useful of some sort. So that's a guiding question. And I think on a day-to-day basis, I think that's really useful. How can I be useful today? Yes, do the bigger picture, longer picture stuff of writing the novel or your equivalent, and then also focus how can you be useful today. All right, fast 5, number 3. If my life was a movie, what genre would it be? I still have problems with that word, genre. It just sounds weird in my tongue. So if my life was a movie, what genre would it be? Adventure drama. Basically, adventure to get outside, see the world, travel, explore, go on hiking trips, etc. And drama because I'm an emotional child and I interpret things and see things in chaotic, character-driven, pathos-driven translation. So adventure drama. Number 4, what's something I believe in that others don't? Well, as a kid, I grew up with a semi-belief, I'm not sure I totally believed it, that I was from planet Pluto. And I managed to convince my sister I was from planet Pluto and the Pluto people would come and get me at some stage. I think this is probably the sentiment behind it is feeling like the black sheep, that I didn't fit in, that I was somehow different to the rest of my family. And that's all that was. Pretty funny story, though. It's funny now that I'm a sci-fi writer. Not writing about Pluto. Maybe I will in the future. Don't know. The other thing I believe that others don't, or not many don't, is that I believe this identity politics that we are writhing in at the moment, it's been going on for some time, is a temporary thing. I hope that we can get beyond the more and more differentiated identities as people cling to what they hope will give them a sense of self, a sense of conviction, a sense of direction, a sense of focus. And all the different slivers of identity that we hang on to will become moot eventually. So at the moment, there is a really strong attachment from many of us to our race, our religion, our country, our heritage, our political viewpoint, our sexual orientation, our gender. And the more that we can fine-tune this, it seems, the better differentiated and therefore more authentic, in quotation marks, that is. And it's a stage to go through. If I put the lens of developmental leadership maturity across that, it's definitely something that we all need to go through as individuals and as a collective. And on the other side of that, that's what I'm hanging to, is where all those things dissolve a little bit, not get abandoned, but dissolve as a polarity where identity is important and not important. And the one identity that we share is as a living, breathing creature on planet Earth. That's the identity that I want to absorb and be anchored in and navigate from. Okay, fast 5, number 5. These aren't that fast, actually. Spending a lot of time explaining them. All right, number 5. If you could spend a day in someone else's shoes, who would it be and why? Well, I picked 3 people for different reasons. So when I was thinking about this, the first person to come to mind is Elon Musk. Yes, I have a crush on him. Yes, I find him endlessly fascinating. Yes, I have been at once attracted and repelled by the things that he's done. So I like to be in his shoes to understand, what does it take to be a creator on such a massive scale? He's created so many massive enterprises. What does that actually take on a day-to-day basis? So that was really for me about creativity and influence and, creative power, really. The second person or persons that I reluctantly would like to be in their shoes for, just to understand how it works, is Putin and Hitler. Not that I'm equating the two, though there are parallels. It's really the question I have for both of those is, how does a mind get hijacked? How does a mind get hijacked so that the justification of killing others becomes a means to an end for some other grand design? And how this is really the theme of, how do beliefs create such a powerful force that moves nations? And this is linked to power as well. And I find this a scary investigation. The third person I would love to be in their shoes for a day is Angela Merkel. Oh my God. To understand gravitas, commitment, influence over a lifetime and a career. And this is a different way of exerting power. And maybe my Leadership and Power book will get written next year. It's been 4 years since I wrote a nonfiction book with all these diversions and so on. So maybe that's all on the cards. So that's my reflection. And we will definitely summarize all the themes and questions for you so you can take them away and do some reflection in your own personal world now that we're halfway through 2023. Or whenever it is that you're listening to, they serve good reflective questions. And you can answer those questions with your team too. If I were a book, what it would be, etc. So what we have coming up at the end of July, I would love to see you on board, is a webinar or the in-person Canberra option around strategic conversations for the future. And it is the big picture stuff that we tend to neglect because it's hard to feel like you're getting a sense of traction when there's no immediate answers. And yet, these are the questions we absolutely need to have so that we can generate the outcomes that we need. All right. Well, I hope to see you there. You can find out more on my website, zoerouth.com. Click on events and you'll see the description and the details all there. In the meantime, live well, lead well.
You've been listening to the Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast. To find out more about leadership of the future or to contact Zoe, go to zoerouth.com.